Before this video starts, I just wanted to quickly tell you guys that if you like what I do and maybe want to support the channel, then consider dropping a super thanks. It greatly helps me secure a living out of YouTube, which motivates me into making more high quality build guides like this one. Also, doing that allows you to highlight one of your comments, which, I don't know, you could use to tell me how bad some of my builds are. Anyway, thank you guys in advance and I really hope you enjoy this video. So, it's a new league, and we are having yet another Arc Lightning build. But wait a second, that skill isn't Arc. What's going on? Well, for this league I decided to take my Arc build and incorporate something onto it which a lot of you have been asking me about. And that is Crackling lands. I know for a fact that your regular Arc build should be able to run both Arc and that skill with zero changes to items and passive tree. As a result, you end up doubling your damage against bosses for free. We are talking 70 million damage on a league starter budget, which is insane. Just look at this. We are literally melting Uber Eater with a bunch of common uniques. Best part is that you only have to swap 2 gems to switch between Arc clearing mode and full damage Crackling lands. Alright, as usual we begin with our Ascendancy. We are still a Templar ascended into a Hierophant. The Hierophant Ascendancy is just perfect for our build. First we begin with what's arguably one of Path of Exile's best Ascendancy nodes, and that is Conviction of Power. This node increases both our maximum power and endurance charges count by 1. It also sets our minimum charges for both to be 4. This enables us to play a power charge stacker for massive damage and gives us passive tankiness with endurance charges, and you can have access to that while leveling, which is insane. Next we have Arcane Blessing. This node makes Arcane Surge grant 20% more spell damage to us. Please note that we always have Arcane Surge buff online in this build. Also, this 20% value is scalable by modifiers that increases the Arcane Surge effect, so keep that in mind. Anyway, next we have Divine Guidance. This node both increases our maximum mana and causes some of the damage we take to be taken from it before life. It also makes our investments in maximum mana apply to our global damage at 30% of their values. Last but not least, we have Illuminated Devotion. This node is the least useful node in this Ascendancy. It grants us global life leech from spell damage and 50% reduction to non-damaging elements, which becomes useful when combined with some of our Pantheons, making us completely immune to chill, shock and freeze. And that was it for our Ascendancy. Now let's take a look at our passive tree. Our tree focuses on mana, spell damage, power charges, spell crit chance and crit multi, life, lightning damage, shock effect, and cast speed. Next we got 2 large cluster jewel setups. These add the minimum amount of passives. They include some powerful notables like Practiced Caster, Sap Psych, Widespread Destruction, and Scintillating Idea. Next for mastery choices, we got increases and reductions to maximum mana also applies to shock effect at 30% of their value, plus 15 to maximum shock effect, plus 1 to maximum intensity, plus 25% to global critical strike multiplier against unique enemies, and 3% increased damage per power, frenzy or endurance charge we have. And that was it for our passive tree. Now let's take a look at our items. For our weapons, we are still using a pair of 2 void batteries. This wand easily beats any mirror tier rare wand in builds that stacks power charges. Stacking power charges also helps you at capping your crit chance without having to put any efforts into it. Anyway, our next item is Cloak of Defiance. This unique chest saves us some points on the passive tree by giving us Mind Over Matter Keystone for free. We mainly use it for its 1% mana regen though. Anyway, our next mandatory item is Aziri's Foible. This is a standard amulet for any mana stacking build. It's basically a lot of mana and mana regen. Make sure to anoint Disciple of the Unyielding on your amulet for that 5th permanent endurance charge and 40% increased damage boost. Next we have Crown of the Inward Eye with plus 1 to maximum power charge corruption. This helm with this specific corruption is best in slot. If you can't afford this corruption, then it's better to craft a rare helm with plus 1 to maximum power charge instead. Although you should really try to get one as we really need that life and mana it provides. Our next item is a rare belt with percent increased mana recovery rate redeemer mod. I can't emphasize enough on how important this mod is to have in the build. I noticed a lot of people skipping it in previous iterations, and that's why their mana regen wasn't high enough to sustain Righteous Fire. Anyway, aside from it, you need life, mana, and resistances on your build. Next we have rare gloves with life, mana, resistances, and any good damage mod you can have. On these gloves you want to get lightning exposure and chance to unnerve enemies' eldritch implicits. These can be freely added and rerolled to any uninfluenced item via eldritch currencies. They are easy to attain and cheap to roll. You have no reason to skip them. Now for our rings. First we need any +1 power charge ring that you can afford. Rings with this mod can be expensive, although we only need it to increase our damage, hence it's not mandatory. If you are on a budget, then feel free to replace it with any other rare crafted ring like this one, which can have cast speed, crit multi-essence mod, and increased spell damage per power charge implicit, which will provide you with around the same damage. Last but not least, we got a pair of rare boots that have movement speed, life, mana, resistances, and a high dexterity roll. Now you don't need to have this on your boots, but you are gonna need to have a high dexterity roll somewhere. Anyway, on this we also have eldritch implicits, like increased action speed and increased stun threshold. Don't forget to enchant your boots with increased mana regen if you have cast a spell recently, as it's a lot of free mana regen for this build. And that was it for our items. Now let's talk about gems that goes inside of them. For our main 6 link we have level 21 Val Arc, Awakened Lightning Penetration, Increased Critical Strike Support, Power Charge on Crit, Awakened Spell Echo, and Awakened Added Lightning Damage. Now when you want to switch to your bossing setup, just swap both Arc and Increased Critical Strike supports for both Crackling Lance and Intensify. And that's it, you don't have to do anything else. Anyway, next we have our primary damage support setup. This one contains Wrath, Eternal Blessing support to completely remove Wrath reservation, Righteous Fire, and Conductivity. Now for our next gem setup we have Divergent Arcane Cloak, Divergent Arcane Surge, Enhanced Support, and Increased Duration. Make sure to assign Arcane Cloak to your left mouse button to enjoy permanent uptime on level 20 Arcane Surge buff. Last but not least, we have a 4 link that contains our main movement skill setup. In it we got Lightning Warp, Faster Casting, Less Duration, and Swift Affliction. And that was it for our gems. Alright, now let's talk about jewels. For unique ones, we have a Watcher's Eye with 15% lightning penetration while affected by Wrath. Next we have one Militant Faith Timeless Jewel that must specifically mention High Templar Dominus. The number on the jewel does not matter. Place it in this socket to maximize its effect. This jewel will convert all nearby keystones into Inner Conviction. Inner Conviction grants you 3% more spell damage per power charge. Next we have one Sublime Vision Jewel that makes it so that our lightning damage can sap while affected by Wrath. Sap reduces enemies' damage output by 20%, which is just another added defensive layer over our mana, endurance charges, and Arcane Cloak. This jewel also increases Wrath aura effect by 40%, which by itself makes it best in slot damage-wise. Finally, we have one Healthy Mind Jewel. Place it in this socket to convert nearby life nodes into mana. Any remaining jewel socket you have left should be filled with a normal rare jewel like this one. We are looking for mana and as many damage modifiers like spell damage and crit multi as possible. Now for Bandits quest, we are going to help Allura as usual. As for Pantheons, we got the Soul of the Brine King for its Ephesian immunity and the Soul of Garo Khan for its shock effect reduction. And that was it for our best Arc, Lightning, and Crackling Lance build. If you guys have enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any future build guide like this one. My name is Phoenix and I will see you all in the next video.